What's up, football world? It's Bucky Brooks, and I'm back with the Bucky Brooks Show. And I'm excited because it's not often that I get to have one of my people, some of my closest friends on. But today, I'm blessed to have Cameron Wolfe join me. Cameron Wolfe, who does everything for NFL Network, my partner in crime when it comes to Back Together Weekend, Inside Training Camp Live, all the things. Cam, what's going on?
What's going on, buddy? I'm so glad to see you in 70 degrees AC. The last couple times we saw each other, we were cooking 95 degrees, sweat rags, fans, everything on training camp in Miami and Jacksonville. So I'm glad to be in the AC talking to you, brother.
Hey, look, I am glad too, but look, Cam, I feel like we got it good because I looked at Mike Yam and Gerald McCoy. They were in Kansas City, and Gerald McCoy was sweating as if he was wearing a silk shirt in the nightclub. Like he was completely drenched. It was stuck to him. I feel like we got out light during our time in Miami and Jacksonville. But I want to talk about the Jacksonville time because when we were in town together, we were in Duval, like we had an opportunity to not only check out the team, we had a chance to like look at Trevor, talk to Travis Hunter and those things. But jumping into Jacksonville, what's the first thing that came to mind based on your visit last weekend?
Yeah, I always like to set a feel of what the tone is of a place, right? Because it's training camp. Everybody's got hope. Everybody's going to sell you on their best players. We're going to win this year. But you can feel a vibe, an energy based off of how players are moving around, how coaches are moving around, whether the assistant staff is smiling or not. And I tell you what, there was a different energy, like a new coaching staff change, new regime, all that stuff, culture change, all the buzz stuff we hear, but you feel a youthful energy. You feel a fun, looser energy. Now, I can't tell you if that's going to mean 7 more wins, but I can tell you that I felt people who were happy to be there, happy to be around their coworkers, happy to be in a place where they can dance and have fun and just kind of explore this new normal. We got a chance to talk to Liam Cohen right before he walked into practice, and he's joking with us about new offenses versus old offenses, and he runs straight out to practice, and everybody's just running around. And to me, I think that's going to be a symbol of what we're going to see from Jacksonville this year. I can't tell you they're going to win the AFC South or not, but I can tell you that I think they're going to have more creativity on offense, something they didn't have in previous years. I think they're going to be bolder in their decision-making and how they go about using players, which is what we've seen with drafting a two-way guy in Travis Hunter, moving a guy like Jerry Jones outside, trying to figure out different ways to use their running backs, Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby in the way, and changing some of the mechanics of a quarterback who's already been paid big money. That's usually not something you do, but those are things of them trying to be bold, trying to elevate their roster, and I'm excited to see the results of the process.
It's funny because I got to say, man, you were almost like the mayor of Jacksonville when you were down there. It was a lot of bro hugs. There's a lot of fist bumps. Everybody. Hey. And so you talked briefly about Liam Cohen, and I certainly understand the relationship and being able to watch him. He certainly has a different edge to him. There's a youthful exuberance that you see with him and the team. But tell me about the defensive coordinator, because I know you know Anthony really, really well from his time in Miami. So you talked to him a little bit. What's up with him?
Yeah, Camp is full gas all the time, like 105% energy. Like I don't know if this man could ever live in a library for longer than 5 minutes, because he's just loud. He's just hyper active. And I think that is going to be what you see from his defense, because they're going to have to match his energy. We talked to Travis Hunter. That was one of the questions I asked him. And he was like, we know we got to match his energy because he's going to be disappointed. You don't want to see him when he's disappointed. And I think that's the feel you would want from your defensive coordinator of like, I'm going to give you guys what I want. A lot of times you got DCs that may be, calmer in personality, just going to tell you the scheme. Nah, Campanelli's going to get out there. He might grab a bag and push you over if you're not doing it the right way. And so he's a former linebacker coach, comes from a high school football coaching family. All his brothers coach in high school or college football in Jersey, and they're just competitive Italian dudes, man. They argue over who's going to get the last piece of chicken parm on the dinner table on Saturday night dinner. So that's just the way they flow, and I'm excited to see him get his own opportunity. I was talking to him and a few of his players about like what this new scheme's looking like. And it looks like they're going to do a blend of what they did in Green Bay last year, but also they had two different defenses in Miami under Vic Fangio and Brian Flores, and they're having doses of those defenses too. So kind of a collab of three different defenses that Campanelli's been on there, and they're going to merge it into one. And so you're going to see your edge rushers drop a little bit from time to time. Not all the time, but drop a little bit in situational drills, but they're going to be able to attack. Sounds like they got Armstead back inside where he belongs. And you can really see, with those guys inside, how those edge rushers, Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker really get after the quarterback. So I'm eager to see it, in preseason when we actually get, the full defense together. But our glimpse from Sunday was a good teaser.
It's funny because you talked about camp and the impact that it had and how Travis Hunter talked about, man, you got to bring the energy. I thought it was interesting. Foye Oluokun talked to the media shortly after we were there, and he talked about how this defense will take on the identity of the play caller. And so when you talk about that energy, that sitting on the edge of your seats, like being ready to go, they feel like they're taking that on because his personality is so in your face, so exuberant that you have to bring that kind of enthusiasm. Speaking of enthusiasm, we got a chance to talk to Travis Hunter, who is very enthusiastic, not only about his role as a two-way player, but we were able to joke him a little bit about teaching Trevor Lawrence celly, dancing, and those things. But your overall thoughts and impressions on Travis Hunter?
Well, first of all, he doesn't stop moving. Like, I think everybody's question about Travis Hunter is the same. Can he really do it? Like, we hear all the buzz from college two-way player, Heisman. Yeah, but the NFL is different. Yeah, but is he big enough? Yeah, but this. Yeah, can he? And everything is like, yeah, but. And then you watch him and you're like, I can see it. I can see it. Like, we watched him one day in defense and he's already making pass breakups, 2 or 3 pass breakups. One against Brian Thomas. He hadn't even been practicing much on defense at that stage in camp, and he looked like he was fluid and flowing. I'm watching him in between drills. He's dancing when he's not playing. He's getting the ball from somebody. He's running, trying to get to the front of the line. Like, these are things you don't expect from a guy who is probably overwhelmed mentally just from having to study 2 different playbooks. But he ran down his schedule with us on TV, and it's like defensive walkthrough, this meeting, offensive this side, in between special teams periods, I'm going here. And I'm just like, man, can you start over to step 2? I'm not that smart, but I think that's one thing that probably doesn't get talked about enough about him, his intelligence and how much he understands football naturally, but also is like able to have a capacity to learn those things, especially as a young guy. This, Bucky, a lot of the young kids, man, attention span is so short. I'm thinking about, can he last a 30-minute meeting? He's got to go to 7 of them in a day. So I think he will be able to do this two-way thing. It's just how early they will give him the full green light to be able to do them both.
It's funny, Cam, in talking to Jaguars officials, they talked about him. Hey, look, he's a two-way standout, but really view it as a guy who's really a 1.5-way player, meaning full-time wide receiver. And then on defense, he's going to come in and what they call get off the field moments. So that could be 3rd down. It could be red zone, 2-minute situations, end of game. When they need a play on defense, you'll see number 12 run onto the field. And so when everyone at our level, in the NFL level, is talking about, this is going to be challenging, whatever, I'm like, think about your local high school and think about if your local high school has a high-end player. This is how the local high school coach would utilize him. Hey, look, he may be a full-time offensive player, but when we're playing a good team, I may need him on defense. When we are in a critical point of the game where we may need a play, hey, I'm going to throw him on defense because maybe he can get around the ball and make something happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see him jump in as a punt returner. Yep. These are the kind of things that I know it's the NFL, and we're not used to people kind of taking that youth ball, that high school approach. But to me, it's no different than a high school coach taking his 5-star player and utilizing him the best way that he needs to figure out if he can win a game.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And I think that's probably a great description of how they're going to use him. I think you got to look at the NFL differently, right? Because I think I give their GM, James Gladstone, a lot of credit because he brings a different mindset of like, why not? Like, guys will always say, we haven't done this before. Why not? Why haven't we? Like, it's not an automatic, we haven't done it before. And you broke it down, he's not going to be playing 150 plays. I think that everybody knows that's unrealistic, but why can't he do a little bit more? Why can't we've seen at times, especially 3 phases of the ball, offense, defense, special teams, we've seen star receivers be primary returners. Deshaun Jackson, has one of his most famous plays as a player came as him as a punt return. Miracle in the Meadowlands, whereas their coach saying, hey, we can't put him on special teams because he's going to get hurt. No, you use your weapons in the best way. And if that means, hey, and on a hot day, we're not going to be able to play Travis all 90 offensive plays. We're going to play him 75 to 80 so he can still get those 25, 30 defensive plays. You adjust. That doesn't change a ton differently. Like I'm here in Miami, Tyreek Hill will tap out for a drive and may not play for 15 plays in a regular game. So I don't really see the this is so crazy if you really look at it in the lens that you just presented it of we can use him in situations that he's going to be most valuable on the defensive side of the ball, and we can control how we get the ball to him on offense.
And so speaking of offense, everything is about number 16, Trevor Lawrence. One of the reasons why Travis Hunter is playing as a two-way standout, but really getting his start on offense is because it's time for the Jaguars to have their quarterback elevate. Trevor Lawrence, the big money, the contract has already been paid out. They're ready to see him go. A lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. How do you feel like the young quarterback is responding?
Yeah, I can't wait to see his bond with Liam Cohen. Obviously there was a lot said about the end of him and Doug Peterson. And, now you're in a new era. You get to restart with a little bit of younger guy, a guy that may be a little bit more creative in how he is going about calling plays for your skill set. And I think, honestly, you talked about this on TV about him being a point guard, maybe a guy that can be a little bit more stern with you on like, hey, you don't have to be Superman. And sometimes it takes – people forget Trevor Lawrence is still very young. I know he came in the league early and he's had a handful of years, already has a big contract, but he still, for very much of the early stages of his career, had the I got to be superhero mentality, leads him to heavy turnovers, leads him to some injuries that have derailed his seasons. And so can we dial it back a little bit? It's okay. And I get it. Everybody wants the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons. I get it. Trevor Lawrence was hopeful to be that. But if you can be a really good quarterback who can take care of the ball, stay healthy for 17 games, that gives you a path to winning your division. That gives you a path to the playoffs. I think people think being a Jared Goff, being a Baker Mayfield is a bad thing. We saw what Liam Cohen just rode Baker Mayfield to get in the head coach job. It's good enough, clearly, for people to see that resolve. If Trevor Lawrence had a Baker Mayfield type seasons the next 2 years, I think Jags fans would be ecstatic. And it's just reprogramming the mindset of you don't need that 70-yard scramble around 5 seconds and launch touchdown pass. It's okay to nickel and dime a defense and punish them from being out of position.
Hey, Cam, look, what you're saying, music to my ears. When you talk about Trevor Lawrence playing well, I think the link that you make, and there are a few different links that I believe are important. Understand Liam Cohen and his relationship with Sean McVay. Sean McVay pulled off what I say reclamation projects a few different times in different ways. Jared Goff, former #1 overall pick. Sean McVay was able to get him running, did some things that really helped him unlock his talent. Matthew Stafford coming over from Detroit, even though Matthew Stafford was a made man, he helped him go to the next level. Liam Cohen watching Sean McVay has his own opportunity to take a former #1 overall quarterback pick in Baker Mayfield and transformed him into an absolute monster a season ago in Tampa. And now he gets another chance to deal with a former #1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence, who by all accounts, look, man, I would say of the quartet that I named, look, he might be the most talented of the group with the exception of Matthew Stafford. That's a lot to work with. But the other thing that you said, and this is going to take me to FanDuel Sports and the odds. You said the Jaguars could not only win the division, and they could win the division, or they could make the playoffs. And I'm looking at the odds on FanDuel, and right now the odds to make the playoffs for the Jacksonville Jaguars are plus 172. The odds for them to win the AFC South plus 290. Cam, do I need to cash a ticket? Do I need to take my ticket to the front? Can I bet on the Jags going to the playoffs or no, going to the playoffs and potentially win a division? Should I go all in?
Yeah, I'll say this. So, like, clearly the Jags are not the favorite of the AFC South, and I get it. You just saw what they had last year. But this division, like, call it what it is. It's always a wide open division to be taken because no one has elevated to the elite category. Like, even the Houston Texans, who have been very, very good, the consistent winner of the division. Are we sure they're not a bottom 5, bottom 3 offensive line in football? Are they going to be able to protect C.J. Stroud? Can he last the season behind that O-line that maybe is worse than they were last year as far as talent? Like, that's a huge question there. Can they get all of their receivers back healthy and get the flow back? They lost Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins missed some of the year through the injuries. Tank Dell, we don't even know if he is going to be able to play in 2025 coming through the injury. There's a lot of question marks on that team. And so you're telling me the Jags can't make a run. You're telling me they can't find a route to 9 or 10 wins and find a way at the end of the season. I've seen it before. I've seen Houston steal a division from the Jags before out of thin air, and I couldn't rule it out in that atmosphere. I get it. The Jags were bad record last year, but if your quarterback's fully healthy, you start to have playmakers like Travis Hunter and like Brian Thomas making plays. And if those edge rushers who are in a scheme maybe more helpful for their skill set at a lighter weight can really get back to rushing the passer like they did in 2023, why not? Why not, Bucky?
Look, man, you talk about why not. Look, I know Jacksonville fans are excited, but they're not the only fan base that can be excitable in Florida, particularly down in South Florida, Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, who I feel like over the last 3 years, they've been hailed as a dark horse Super Bowl contender. People were really excited about the offense. When Tua Tagovailoa is available, this offense is next level in terms of their speed, their playmaking ability, the explosive plays that they can generate. The Miami Dolphins are undergoing a little bit of, I won't call it a rebuild, I call it a remodel. They're trying to tweak some of the things going on. What do you know? What's going on? Because you're down in South Florida. What's happening with the Miami Dolphins right now?
Yeah, changing some furniture around. You're trying to get granite on the tabletop instead of the previous material. The house is the same. The house is the same. The head coach, the builder is the same. They honestly, if you look at the house, it's got a little less glossy. More time has passed. The offense isn't as new age as it once was. There's been some things figured out. Talent-wise, you've lost a Jalen Ramsey. You've lost a Calais Campbell, Teron Armstead, Javon Holland, guys who were players. And when you look at it just from like a Madden roster standpoint, they're probably lower talent-wise than the team. Their perspective is we're going to be better in the areas we were missing. We're going to be a tougher team. They drafted 2 of the biggest dudes they can find in Kenneth Grant and Jonas Aviana in the draft to play defense tackle and guard for them. They believe there's going to be some addition by subtraction, getting rid of guys, like Jalen Ramsey, letting guys go in free agency like a Javon Holland or Jordan Poyer. They believe there's going to be a different energy coming back. Are they right? I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't sit there. We could turn around and 4 or 5 months ago and they could be going the other way and we could be like, they're wrong. But right now, that is their vision of we're going to be more united as a team. We're going to have more accountability. We saw them in practice Saturday. They're running wind sprints and up downs after mistake-heavy periods. If they got penalties or if they're dropping the football, that's something I hadn't seen in 3 years here. Like I hadn't seen it. And so, whether you say Mike McDaniel's changed, whether the players around them and new leadership has changed, their belief is that we're just going to double down on what we've done with a more belief system in Mike. And we think that's going to translate. And we're going to see. I will tell you this, the secondary is a wild question for me. Like there might not be a bigger question for a team that's an AFC playoff contender than the Dolphins cornerback room. I couldn't name one guy that is a bona fide starter on most of the teams in the league. They just signed 2 guys in Jack Jones and Mike Hilton that probably are their number 1 and number 2 corners. They don't even know the playbook. They just got here 3 days ago and lost Kader Kohu, their previous top corner, to a torn ACL. So they're going to need a lot of help from the front 7. They're going to need that offense with Tua and Tyreek to be explosive again. There's more questions than answers. But for once, they're not the hot team. They're not the team that everybody's excited to see. And maybe, just maybe, they can get fuel from being a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, no, you talk about a team that's under the radar. From the outside looking in, the first thing that I noticed when they had so many veterans depart, whether it's a free agent defection, whether it was a exodus that was encouraged by the Miami Dolphins by trade or releasing. To me, it appeared that two things were in play. One, they wanted to get rid of some of the veterans so Mike McDaniels could get back to building his culture unobstructed with older voices impacting the younger voices. But really, I felt like this was clearing the decks so Tua Tagovailoa can really take this team and become the leader that they want him to be. Do you feel like this was a way for them to really hand over the keys to Tua Tagovailoa so he could be the franchise leader?
I think that's a great point. I don't think they've exactly said that, but I do think that's probably some of the thinking. Think about it. Like the guys that are gone, nobody now is bigger than Tua, name-wise on the team. You could say Tyreek, but I think Tyreek's probably been humbled a little bit after the offseason he's had, and he's deferred, and you see Tua stepping up. But, even last year, Odell Beckham Jr. was your third receiver. He's probably more popular than Tua in a lot of people's eyes and maybe has more clout and weight. You get rid of somebody like him and Jalen Ramsey and all these other guys, and then the voices start to clear out a little bit. There's not as many, hey, I got to watch him because of what he's done in the league. Now Tua's that guy. And so I think what his accountability of it with Tyreek, and we talked to him on Saturday, and I thought he was very transparent and open in that moment of saying like, hey, 3 years ago in my career, I wouldn't have said anything to Tyreek after he said I'm out. I would have just said, hey, we're going with the flow. But now I know I got to hold him accountable. If this is what the standard is, I can't just say it's my bad and keep it, so we still got some work to do. We're building that relationship. And to me, I thought that was the perfect answer because it seems fake if you just say, hey, it's all good. Come on back. We're all good. That was just last year. You did something that hurt the team. People feel like there's some people in that locker room that said you quit. You quit on us when things got tough. And it's hard to come back from that. Tyreek's attempting it, and I think he's going about it the right way. But I don't blame the quarterback from saying, let's see it. And you got to prove it to us. And we got to hold a standard of not letting you get away with some of the stuff you got away with in the past. He's talked about it, being late for practice, showing up and being consistent as far as a leader. I think those are the versions you're seeing of Tua, and I'm excited to see it. He's more comfortable than I've ever seen him.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. Having known Tua since he was 16, 17 years old, it's the most demonstrative I've seen him when it comes to the leadership position. It's the most open and verbal that I've heard him and seen him kind of take the lead when it came to some things. And when I look at how they cleared the decks and they removed a lot of the veterans and they really paved the road for him to be able to kind of seize control of it, I like it. And I think in Miami, he without question is the biggest difference when it comes to their success. If he's healthy, they are completely different. Offense is dynamic, it's fun, it's explosive. I think people are sleeping on the Miami Dolphins because they've just fallen out of favor because they haven't been able to get it done late. But I do believe the uptick in accountability, Tua taking over, and Mike McDaniels understanding the lay of the land, this team is poised to maybe make a better impression this year than we expected. But I got to ask you about a couple of guys that departed. First, let's go to Pittsburgh, Jalen Ramsey. Because you were so close to the team, how do you anticipate Jalen Ramsey fitting in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think he'll be a great fit under Mike Tomlin. I think he has been clear throughout his career. He wants a strong, vocal head coach. And, Sean McVay was that for him. And I think him landing with Mike Tomlin helped him be able to feel like he's pushed at a level that, he needs to be engaged. And I think that we've seen Jalen Ramsey, especially right after a move, have a certain level of motivation. When he got to Miami, even when he got hurt, he came out those last 9 games, had a Pro Bowl year, picking up all the passes. When he got to the Rams, he helped them get to a Super Bowl. Those first year or two of Jalen Ramsey, you're going to get a dog, a motivated element. And I think that in that city, in that culture, they're all about business, which is Jalen's fit. Sometimes guys are just not as great of a fit in other places. Some people may like the fit in Miami where you're playing a little bit more music, you're a little bit more looser, you're having fun, you're trying to score points. Jalen wants to be about that action. He wants to be about that grit. And I think that's what Pittsburgh does for him. I'm intrigued to see this next level of his career. Is he going to move inside, play a little bit more slot, play a little bit more safety, or is he still truly an outside corner? He may have a year or two left of outside corner of elite ball there, but eventually he's talked about the potential of being that do-it-all defensive back. So whether that happens now or a year from now, I think that second half transition, like we've seen some elite corners do in the past, to safety, to nickel, to star, I think is going to be intriguing because he's a playmaker. He's got natural instincts of the ball, and he's a guy who has won titles, who's been a champion, who has been a captain, who has been a guy that people look on to for feedback. So for a Steelers team that seems to be making that last year or two push with this current core, with Aaron Rodgers now, with TJ Watt just saying, hey, let's give it all we got for this last year or two, I think Jalen Ramsey in that same mindset of let's go get this one last title to put a capper on our careers.
And look, it's such a fascinating fit. I will say this about Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin knows defensive backs. He still raved about Minkah Fitzpatrick on the way out. But there's something that I believe they feel that Jalen Ramsey brings that Minkah doesn't in terms of his versatility, his ability to play outside, inside, the man-to-man aspect where they can tighten the coverage. Because remember, the one thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are aiming to do is how do we build a team that can win our division? When you think about Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, you got to be able to match up. Think about the Baltimore Ravens, DeAndre Hopkins coming over, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, who's an emerging force. Jalen Ramsey gives them the ability to match up with those teams. That's why they had to do it. And final thing, that organization has seen guys like Rod Woodson come in and out of it. And we got to think about Rod Woodson going from being a corner to later in his career being a standout safety. Maybe Mike Tomlin sold Jalen Ramsey on, I'm the guy that can ease your transition from corner to slot to safety to add a few more years and maybe put some more money in your pocket. Last thing, since you talk about Miami and the Exodus, Christian Wilkins became a star in Miami. In that system, was a dominant player, signs a big money contract, goes to Las Vegas. He's there for a year, gets hurt, it goes awry, and then he's released. And we hear these weird things coming out or whatever without getting like too nitty gritty. Like what is going on? Like what is the vibe? Like what is the vibe that the people that have played with him had on Christian Wilkins? And are you surprised to hear a story like this kind of have all these weird references and innuendo?
Well, one, I'm surprised because I've never heard anything like this before. Like, I've never heard of a guy signing a big $100 million deal and after a year getting cut and trying to get his deals voided. It's like, what the heck was going on there? Like, that's the first thing, because I wasn't there. And I'm sure the team has a perspective. Christian Wilkins has a perspective, and they're somewhere in the middle. But yeah, talking to I was with him in Miami for years. I've talked to teammates of his. And the thing about Christian Wilkins, in Miami and even his early period of Vegas, he's going to be a crazy worker. He's going to be a hard worker. He's going to be an Iron Man on the field. He's got a different personality. He's a little quirky. He's a different guy. But there's a bunch of dudes in NFL locker rooms that are different. It goes from different to the stuff that they're saying now is a big jump. And I'll just say this, like, certain locker room dynamics, they just don't merge. Things you might get comfortable with in one place doesn't fly in another place. And there's going to be an NFLPA fight with this. I've talked to coaches of his who already said if he's healthy, I want him back. So he has not made enough people mad that they saying, hey, we don't want him. They're like, hey, if he's healthy, man,
we got him. We got him.
I don't know what's going on in Vegas, but when we inside them fields, he can help us stop the run and get after the quarterback. And I do think he'll get another opportunity. But yeah, man, this is weird. And I talked to one general manager who said he had never heard of a situation where a guy's contract got voided based off of how he handled his injury, And so just like the base of that, to me, there has to be a lot more in that situation. And I think this is going to be a lot of lawyers and a lot of stickiness that may take years to figure out. But I hope we get to see Christian back on the field and it's more focused on that than whatever this other mess has been.
Yeah, man, that's great insight, because I wondered, Cam, I just never, having played for a long time, having been a part of multiple organizations as a front office, I've never heard of anything like this. And I just know as a player, man, the locker room is different. Like anything goes. You have a bunch of different things. There are people from all walks of life that exist and coexist in a locker room. And so whatever took place in Vegas is something that is so highly unusual that I can't even fathom what happened. But I do know this: talent trumps it all. And he is so talented and he's such a good player that when he is healthy, he 100% is going to get an opportunity to play again, because you just don't let interior pass rushers like him leave. And so it's cool, man. Hey, man, this was fun, Cam. Thanks so much for coming on. Like, this was awesome. Your insight, your platform, like this was real cool. We got to do this again.
Absolutely. I loved it, man. Anytime I can chat ball with you, man, it's a good day.
Hey, man, thanks so much. That was the Bucky Brooks Show. My man Cam Wolfe joined us today. Until next time, we'll chat with you soon.